Alright, now we're going to look at the second effect here. That's going to be the teleport effect. Now it's a very quick effect, but it's actually a little bit tricky. I probably made it trickier than it has to be, so feel free to kind of take what I show you and then pare it down to suit your purposes if you need to. But this is a full effect. We have different clones kind of phasing together. We have this particle system. You see all the colors warp around here. Bennett, while he runs through the hall, he doesn't actually get warped by it. We have a nice lens flare that covers the screen. White out, and then Henry is there. So let's do this. Now as the base for this, we're going to use MVI 050. Right click, new comp from selection. Now something you should always do when you're making these selections, rather than calling it MVI 050 or 055, right click on there, rename it into something that works better. I'm going to call mine teleport tutorial because I'm doing the tutorial. And I'll call this 55 one, I'll call that lightsaber tutorial from last time. Alright, now we're ready to begin. So here we have nothing happening, but I noticed the camera shakes in here, so I'm going to cut it short to right before Bennett comes in, because then that's a little bit more stable and it's going to be a little bit easier to manage here. Now we're going to get the second piece of footage. I'm going to put it right on top, and that's the footage with Henry in it. Now it would have been better if we would have recorded this just all in one take, so we weren't moving the camera from time to time. So even at the beginning of this one, okay, Bennett runs in and Henry is there. So we're going to wait till he gets into the set position here. But now we have a bit of a conflict here. So we have Bennett running in 050 and we have Bennett running in 051. So what we want to try and do as best as we can is match up Bennett's position running in 050 and in 51 at the same time. Now this is a little bit tricky, so what we're going to do is we're going to open up on 51. We're going to go to transform, and we're going to bring the opacity down so we can actually see Bennett in both times. And we're actually going to align this in time to where Bennett is. So if we bring this here, so Bennett starts to come in here. And then we also have some alignment issues because we reset the camera, so we'll have to move those into position. So I'm going to click and drag on this movie 51, and I'm trying to align as best I can. I'm going to use the arrow keys too to align these two movie clips. And right there, right where Bennett's head comes in, that's the best alignment that we have for this shot. I'm going to turn the opacity all the way up, and let's see if we can. That's pretty good. But because I had to move it, we have this border here, and so we want to parent this to a null object so that we can kind of size it up and keep it in frame as much as possible. Plus we could add some camera shake later if we wanted to. So we're going to go to Layer, New, Null Object, and I'm going to right click. I'm just going to call this Parent. And we're going to take this pick whip here on MVI 51 and 50. We're going to drag it to Parent, and on Parent, this is what's cool about this when you parent stuff, is you can scale it up, okay, and it scales everything together. And now I can get this closer together, and now it shifts a little bit. But once we add the effects, you're not going to notice that so much. Actually, that's the reason why I have such a huge effect in the space, so you don't notice this little jumpy part on Bennett from clip to clip. Alright, back to here. So now here we have MVI 51, and we want to do some cool things to have him fade in. So we're going to do, so this is where he's going to be in here. I'm going to extend this here. We're going to do Control, Shift, and D to make that clip on its own. I'm going to open it up or push T on the keyboard so I just get opacity. I'm going to click the stopwatch for that, set it to 100, and then go down to 0 here. So here we have just that, just Henry appearing, and we have some slight problems with Bennett here not matching up, but it's not going to matter because we're going to add some masking around Henry so we only see the difference in him. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to click and hold on the rectangle tool. We're going to go down to ellipse tool, and we're going to drag an ellipse around Henry like so. Now we're going to open up masks down at the timeline. Mask 1. We're going to go to mask feather. We're going to add a little mask feather to it. Not too much. So around 20 pixels should be sufficient. That just makes it blend in a little bit better. So here we have just Henry appearing, kind of just sliding in from the left because of the camera issues. Not bad though. So now we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to do some effects where we have a Henry, three Henrys kind of converge onto each other. So we're going to do Control D on this. We'll call this, we're going to rename this, we're going to call this Henry ... maybe. Okay. Henry ... We are going to duplicate you. Do Control D on the keyboard. And on this duplication, we're going to warp. I'm just going to take regular old warp. I'm going to put it onto Henry 2. And it wants to do arc, but we're going to change that to inflate. And we're going to have it bend outward. We're going to animate this, so we're going to click on the stopwatch right here. We're going to push U on the keyboard. We're going to drag that bend keyframe all the way to the beginning, and then we're going to do another one at 0, and now we have something like this. So we kind of have this fading in, this Henry kind of from the back. That's pretty cool, so let's do it again. So we're going to do Control D on this Henry 2. We get Henry 3. Henry the third, I am. Hopefully we got no more than that. We're actually going to change this to a negative 90 there. And so now what we'll have is we have three Henrys coming together, making one amazing Henry. But that's not all. We should change the blending effects here so we get some different kind of look. So I'm going to change that to light. I'm going to change Henry 2 to add. And now we get this kind of, it gets brighter and then it goes away. That's kind of a neat effect there. Now if I look at the one that I did earlier, so we have this, we have some particle systems in here, and then we have a lens flare and some turbulent displacement. So we're going to add that into ours as well. So right here, when it gets to the maximum brightness here, we're going to add a new layer. We're going to do Control Y. We're going to call this flare. Click OK, and we're going to look for flare, lens flare. Can't have a good effect without lens flare. We're actually going to animate the center part and the brightness too. So we're going to click on flare center on the stopwatch and flare brightness. And we're going to change the mode here to add. We're going to push U on the keyboard so we can see the keyframes, and I'm going to drag these keyframes to the beginning. So at the beginning we have the flare center at 646, 348, and the flare brightness at 100. We're going to change that from 100 to 0. And right when they're coming together, it's going to be its brightest, so we're going to make it super bright. And we're also going to move that center forward just a little bit. So it has this kind of backlighting coming forward, and then it goes back down to 0. I'm going to take the brightness down at the end of this time here. I'm going to bring it down to 0, and the flare center, I'm just going to take that, stretch it out that way. Now this end here, we don't need all of that, so I'm going to shorten that up to the playhead here. We have a nice kind of triple Henry come together with a nice flaring. Now let's add some displacement to this mother. We're going to go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. And what this does, Adjustment Layer allows us to adjust everything underneath it and apply an effect to the whole video without pre-composing or anything else. That's just kind of a nifty little doodad. So we're going to go type in Turbulent, T-U-R-B, that's close enough. We're going to go to Turbulent Displace. We're going to put it on the adjustment layer. And now we get all this warpy stuff. We're going to increase the amount here. And we're going to increase the complexity here. No, we don't need to make it that crazy. We're going to bring the size down here so it's more of like kind of a rippling. Like that. And increase the complexity. There we go. And now we'll increase them up. So then what's going to happen is it's going to be turbulent like this, and then it's going to get to normal as Henry appears. So we're going to animate the amount, the size, and that should be it. Now we click U on the keyboard, and as it comes in, we're going to bring the amount down to 0, and we're going to bring the size down to 0. And so now we have this kind of warping as Henry enters. Now Henry isn't appearing before so the frame should actually start normal. So we're actually going to drag these keyframes in a bit. So actually when it gets brightest, it gets kind of most crazy. And it's going to start with the amount at 0. And so as it gets to that maximum brightness area, we want that to be the craziest, most, we're going to have the amount kind of at its maximum there. So we can see physics bending the light as Henry is entering, because that would happen. You know, physics would get really messed up in order for teleportation to happen. So the whole scene, and then we also don't realize that Bennett is kind of has a little bit of a jump cut in him. One more effect to go, and that is the particle system. So we're going to make a new layer. We're going to call it particle. We're going to look up particle world here. CC particle world. We're going to bring this circle over to Henry. We're going to change the producer, the radius and the Y position like this. We're going to go to physics. We're going to set the animation to twirl. We're going to set the velocity to 0.1. We're going to set the gravity to 0. We're going to do the extra here. We're going to change the extra to about 2.26, and the particles are going to still be lines. And I'm going to run out of time here, so I'm going to pick up where I left off in this video and finish up the particle system in the next one.